Starting from the end of 19th century, it was a period of misery for all the African nations except Ethiopia. The Western countries had scrambled Africans and have wrested unforgettable social, psychological, economic and political crises and black spot on Africans.
During the scramble for Africa, every indigenous nation that was invaded by European powers fell within a matter of decades.
Europeans had a great desire to colonize Ethiopia like the rest of African nations, and they were trying to do that, utilizing different techniques despite the fact that their dream had become a nightmare. Finally, they have sent Italian army to Ethiopia south to implement their plan through force, and the Italian army was so civilized and well equipped. However, Ethiopian heroes and heroines who never know to excuse on their sovereignty and identity had destroyed the civilized army of Italy within a short period of time. The unexpected and unbelievable occurrence had been happened at the Battle of Adwa. White people have been overpowered by the black ones for the first time in history because of Ethiopians. The amazing news had been disseminated to the globe. Africans who were under the slavery life and those who were pessimistic have waked up from their sleep. They had developed the spirit of yes possible and had started struggling for freedom. Through gradual process, all colonized African nations have become free from the suppression.
Battle of Adwa is a battle to ensure the continued independence of Ethiopia. That Ethiopia shall not be like all of these other countries which had become colonies.
Since that period, white people have been obligated to change their low perception to Africans and black people in general. Africans' repression system had been finalized for once and last, and the state had horrified Europeans. Ethiopia had paved the way. Ethiopia had coordinated and led Africans to stand against colonizers. Having that in mind, Europeans had tried to revenge Ethiopia in different periods, but no country could control Ethiopia so far, and that is why Ethiopia is taken as engineer of Africans.
ሰንደቅ ዓላማውን በስሙ ያስከበረው ቀስተ ደመና ነው ከአምላክ የተቸረው አረንጓዴ ቢጫ ቀይ ነው ባንዲራው አባቶቻችን ደም ተከብሮ የኖረው
The Western countries who had realized defeating Ethiopia by force is a nightmare were doing their devil activities on Ethiopians, using the country's poverty as good opportunity and representing some Ethiopians who proceed their gain before their motherland, like the terrorist group of TPLF. Currently, Ethiopia is struggling against poverty so as to improve the life of its people, coordinating patriots. Among these developmental activities, the Grand Ethiopian Rains Dam project can be taken as an exemplary of the Second Adwa and Ethiopians' unity. When the victim remains silent, it will be the accused one. Repeatedly told lies will resemble real and discredit veracity. Western countries which dream economically weak Ethiopia and to facilitate their gain have been disseminating mis and disinformation to the international community regarding Ethiopia. They still want to colonize Africans in new ways. That's why they have posed different pressures on Ethiopia, since they dread that Ethiopia will take the responsibility to unite Africa and make their trans a nightmare.
As you know, the Western countries have a very low perception of Africa and black people in general. They still have this colonial mentality. They still have this neo-colonialism mentality. They want to keep Africa in a box. They want to keep on narrating these narratives that Africa is in war, Africa is in famine. So whenever an African country is dominating in power, as you know, Ethiopia is growing in influence in the entire Africa region, especially after the completion of the dam. Ethiopia will have a lot of power. So this does not make them happy, and they're trying to hold us back. They want to keep on narrating the narratives of war. So that's why they're disseminating this false information.
The most important factor one needs to understand in the first place is disinformation, misinformation is intentionally distributed most of the time across the world. This is not just a phenomena that you see in the case of Ethiopia only. This is a global phenomenon. It has been there since time immemorial in different sizes and shapes. At this moment in time, because of the current global progress in information distribution through social media at the same time and others, it has become one of the strongest problems countries are facing, and now our country is facing it. It's all political. For most of the people who are trying to disseminate this kind of fake information, fake news, is because there is an agenda behind it, mostly political agenda, and then economic agenda. These two are important because nations' foreign policy, certain nations' foreign policy comes out of the idea of protecting their national interests. Okay, so to protect the national interests of X country, you have to also devise a way of manipulating another country. So in our case, we have to understand that this is all intentional so that we can prepare in response to the problem that we're facing. But this, Ethiopia is not alone. Ethiopia is facing at this moment in time, but we need to have proper strategy to tackle it. If we do, we can resolve it in no time.
We need just now to see the problem in a broader way. The disinformation campaign waged against Ethiopia, it's well concerted, well organized, and well funded. What do I mean by well concerted? If you see the way information is crafted, framed, and messages are communicated with the mainstream media or with different kinds of outlets, from tabloid to broadsheets, from local TV stations to international mainstream media, they craft the same message and they speak the same language. Why do they speak the same language? It's also well organized. They don't just report for reporting's sake. If you see, there are people who might be just supporters of the anti-peace elements. You can call them the juntas. They go to streets in the New York and all on the streets, or they just stitched videos and disseminated on social media, and this quickly be picked. It's picked and communicated, disseminated with the mainstream media. These things are just doing something bad against Ethiopia. Foreign media outlets have been outrageous in disseminating false information about Ethiopia and what's happening in Ethiopia. And what that does, it destroys the reputation of Ethiopia to the international community. As you know, Ethiopia has been the emblem of peace for a very long time. But whenever they keep on disseminating this false information on Ethiopia, that the Ethiopian government is actively engaging in war, the Ethiopian government is causing famine in many places by hindering the spread of humanitarian support, that ruins the reputation of Ethiopia to the point that the Western countries may try to impose sanctions on our country based on those false informations. So I would say it ruins the reputation of our country, because our country has a very long track record of maintaining peace, not only in our own country, but in the entire Horn of Africa region. Ethiopia was a very strong actor in the formation of the Organization of African Unity. So Ethiopia has been very active in its peacekeeping missions. You know, we send so many soldiers to the UN troops in the peacekeeping missions. So when this false informations come out, they ruin our reputation. Ethiopia's track record of maintaining peace, not only in our country, not only in Africa, the Horn of Africa, but in the whole world.
I just want to mention an example on the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. The dam's construction is one of the developmental projects of Ethiopia, intending to produce power not only for local consumption but also for regional use at the same time, because as you know, the African Union has a plan of forming regional power grid, continental power grid, so that the continent can grow together through Agenda 2063, the 50 years development plan of the continent. Now this is the intention of Ethiopia. Egypt and Sudan and other riparian countries also have the same right of using their natural resource, because there is an international law that governs resource distribution and fair usage. But when Ethiopia is building this dam, pressures were mounting from different sides. Everyone has their own side of a story, including this country. But Ethiopians are building this dam, as you know, through their own resource, everyone contributing. But if you ask yourself, there are funds everywhere in the world to finance such projects. This is a mega hydroelectric power project, but none is found for this project because of the work that has been done against it. Now, this is a damage for the country, because the resource that has been spent on the dam can be reallocated, if it could be substituted by other source, to develop other parts of Ethiopia's economy or socio-economic situation. So this is one damage that the pressure that has been mounting from the international community that has created on this country. Politics, ethnic division, fightings here and there, it disrupts the normal flow of life in this country, and we have seen it. So if we're not fighting misinformation and disinformation and the pressure from outside together, even the very sovereignty of the country could be endangered. You know, so it's up to us to make sure that this kind of problem is not going to affect us in the future, by making sure that the global community gets the right information. I mean, through all of this, there was no bullet fired, only information that is soft to touch but hard to attack. So our fair share of the job, which was left undone, that is affecting us at this moment in time. I was giving you an example. I was giving an example to a friend of mine earlier, saying that what Dr. Seleshi, Excellency the Minister of Water, Irrigation and Energy, has done in the UN, the Security Council, if it can be multiplied 1,000 times in different sectors, can you imagine what kind of positive change it could bring to the country? Let's do that. As you know, Ethiopia has been the emblem of peace for a very long time. But whenever they keep on disseminating this false information on Ethiopia, that the Ethiopian government is actively engaging in war, the Ethiopian government is causing famine in many places by hindering the spread of humanitarian support, that ruins the reputation of Ethiopia, to the point that the Western countries may try to impose sanctions on our country based on those false informations. So I would say it ruins the reputation of our country, because our country has a very long track record of maintaining peace, not only in our own country but in the entire Horn of Africa region. Ethiopia was a very strong actor in the formation of the Organization of African Unity. So Ethiopia has been very active in its peacekeeping missions. You know, we send so many soldiers to the UN troops in the peacekeeping missions. So when this false informations come out, they ruin our reputation. Ethiopia's track record of maintaining peace, not only in our country, not only in Africa, the Horn of Africa, but in the whole world.
The foreign media outlets purposely defaming Ethiopia, and Ethiopian media institutions have to confront the information war accordingly. We are filtering and addressing the reality to the international society, unless Ethiopia will lose more than what it has faced now.
We have media houses in this country, which are working in different sectors, most of them controlled by the government, few others privately owned, including those newcomers of the social media. The problem with these is not resource or material or other things. The problem with this is lack of proper expertise, lack of preparation, lack of the right mindset, and also misunderstanding the fact that the kind of power these media houses hold in their hands can do good to the nation, not only bad, because we've seen how media houses can damage any country, including this one, we can also see how media houses can build nations if we can synergize our effort. It's not about the number of media houses in a country. Some people argue, oh, how many radio stations do we have? How many TVs? It doesn't matter how many we have. It matters how many of them are going for the right cause. It doesn't matter if they are supporting the government or not. Are they pro-Ethiopia? Because that's the bigger picture. If a media house that belongs to Ethiopia fights against the country, then there is a problem. We need to fix it. At the same time, how do we work for a national unity? How can we strengthen our resource utilization? How can we educate the next generation? How can Ethiopia go to the front so that it can leave a better impression for the continent as it did before? So our media houses are weak in this criteria, and they need to step up their games, because the rhetoric, the vicious circle, has done nothing but damage to us. If we want to change the narrative, we have to come out of the circle and start re-strategizing in order to serve the national purpose of Ethiopia, in order to serve the East African cause, in order to serve the continental cause. By then, Ethiopia as a nation, East Africa as a region, and Africa as a continent can contribute for global wealth, peace, security, and others.
As journalists, what we can do is, I call it war. The Western media have declared war on us. And in war, when you're being attacked, you have to fight back. So we journalists have to fight back. And how do we fight back? By verifying and exposing those false narratives, by exposing them. Because when you expose them, they will start thinking twice before disseminating the lies and the misinformation. But if we keep on being quiet, the lies will keep on spreading. So what we can do as journalists is to expose them, to expose the misinformation by publishing verified information, by publishing verified information.
There is a limitation of our media. I mean, the limitation is in terms of the broadcast, in terms of circulation. For instance, if you see the papers published in English, in Arabic, and so on, they are circulating only in Ethiopia. So our reach is just not limited, but we need to increase, our outlets. We need to, bring our cause to the international community the way they understand it, with their own language. This is a limitation not only to Ethiopia, but also to Africa. If you see the Middle Eastern world, they have got, a media that's just representing their interest. If you see the Al Jazeera, if you see, the Westerners, they have got just outlets, so many outlets, even to the extent that they can influence opinion, public opinion in Africa, in the third world. So that's one limitation. The other limitation is we need to communicate them in a way they understand it, with their own, in their own terminologies. For instance, those who are propagating disinformation, they tell the international community about summary killing, about genocide, about children's the children's rights, rape, and so on, so on, so on. Because they want the international community, they want to invoke their interests so that they could put pressure against Ethiopia. This is the reason. But when we come to our side, we don't just technically present the facts in a way the international community can take it. For instance, recently there were wide accusations against the terrorist group TPLF, conscribing of children for military purposes. So these things should be reported very well. They should be reported not only to Ethiopians but to the international community. The UN must know this. The African Union must know this, and they should act. We need to present it in a way that can enable them to act. So it's all about giving facts It's not about just appealing to their senses, but we need to them facts, irrefutable facts, so that they can act. This is one limitation. The other limitation is sometimes there is a reductionist approach among Ethiopian media. We always talk about GERD and Ethiopia, TPLF and Ethiopia. This problem, it's not only a problem to Ethiopia. If you see, for instance, the GERD issue, we are fighting the good fight, but this fight is also the fight that all Africans should fight. It's not only ours. The victory, it's not only our victory. For instance, the second water impoundment today that we achieved, it's not only our victory. It's a victory to the basin countries. It's a victory to the entire African countries. So we don't have to reduce it. We need to just bring it to the level that these projects also belong to Africans, because it inspires other African countries, other basin states along the Nile to do similar, to realize similar projects with their own funding. The other important thing is even among the Western countries, there are a substantial number of people who can stand for justice. If you see just back in the day, in history, we can see just for instance, Sylvia Pankhurst, whose headstone is still here in St. Trinity Cathedral. She was just standing by our side. She was standing for justice. Like this, there are a number of people among the West. So we need just approach these people. We need just to bring to light their attitudes, their opinions to fore, so that it's not the entire people campaigning against us. There are entities, a small number of entities, but powerful ones. So this is also an important thing. So we need to communicate it just with facts. We need to just bring it to the level that it's an issue to the basin state, to the African Union, and like this. And we need to also bring to light the opinions of people in the West who stand for justice. So these are some of the limitations, and this is the way that we can just close the gap.
The information war, which has been imposed on Ethiopia, is well organized and financed, and therefore the Ethiopian government has to establish independent media institutions that can confront the information war forward by foreign media outlets and work in joint venture with the media institutions that will be established.
If you get attacked by somebody or an institution in form of a media house from other countries, why don't you form the same platform to defend yourself? It is like forming a defense ministry, or whatever you might call it. The most important factor here is for Ethiopia, we need to start forming an international media house that is going to speak on behalf of the country, on behalf of the region, and on behalf of the continent, because Ethiopia has historic right, historic obligation to defend not only itself but an African cause. As you remember, the Organization of African Unity was formed and still is headquartered in the name of the African Union here in the Ethiopian capital Addis Ababa because of the efforts of our former leaders. We can play a different role, but for the same African agenda, by an institution, a media house, for example, that represents or that can fight today's war, the war of information.
The government can facilitate the establishment of independent institutions whose main task is to monitor the foreign media landscape and to respond accordingly. Because right now we are responding to them, we are trying to correct them whenever they come up with those misinformations, but because we're not in the umbrella of a single institution, because we're scattered, we're not effective in counterattacking. So if we have an independent institution that monitors the media landscape and responds accordingly, that will make us more effective in countering this misinformation and these lies, this outrageous and blatant lies they're spreading about our country. We have Ethiopians among ourselves, we have people among ourselves who are selling our country to the international and to the Western media. You know, they're profit-driven, they receive some benefits, and then they sell their country. But that is not appropriate. That is treason. How can you choose foreigners more than your country? How can a person sell their own country? So I would say that whoever is engaging in handing over these lies to the Western media, they should abstain from that. And to the diaspora community, I want to say that verify information. Don't just believe whatever they tell you. These are enemies of our country. These are people who don't want us to grow. They want us to keep us in their tiny box. They want to keep on spreading the narratives of Africa, Africa of war, Africa famine. They don't want to see us grow. So don't just believe whatever you see, but let us develop the practice of verifying information before we accept it as a fact. So let's verify information. Let's try to find out the truth that's on the ground.
We should stick to facts, and we have nowhere to mine the facts. The facts are quite often they could be just at the backyard of the government. So particularly governmental institutions need to provide ample information. They have got the communication departments. The communication departments should be, active. They should do their job, so that journalists can have ample information. Plus, the media people, we don't have to always be dependent on the communication guys, because the communication guys always want us just they want to tell us. Information. They want to communicate. Sometimes we just dig deep. We need to just investigate the facts with our own resources and capabilities. So we need to just get the facts. We need to work hard. We need to work hard to get the facts, the verified facts. It's not just appealing to emotions. And information that cannot be just taken by the international community. So from the media people, they need to work hard and get facts with their own resources. They need to maximize their resources and be innovative. And from the government side, their communication department, they should be transparent in an accountable way, provide information to the public. It's public information, by the way. They are doing things that should transparently be known to the people. There are, of course, classified information, but we need just to operate on the landscape that we can get the information and work together. So the third thing, the government and the media people, we need to work in concert, hand in glove, so that we can just bring about the desired result.
Form a proper platform. If we have to copy it, how, for instance, we're forming a global media house called Global Television Network of Africa. The idea of it is forming an international media based in Africa, headquartered in Addis Ababa. This is a media house that is going to tell you the story behind the story about Ethiopia, about other countries in the continent, so that the world can get the right information. The decision is theirs. So far there has been a loophole. One side of an information has been disseminating across the world with no other alternative information being supplied or delivered by nations in the continent, including our nation. That has to stop. That's why this GTNA, Global Television Network of Africa, as an example that I'm trying to give you, is going to perhaps solve some of the problems we have by providing the appropriate information. We are not trying to defend any political institution. We're not trying to defend any economic interest. We're trying to defend a national cause. We're trying to defend a regional cause. We're trying to defend a continental cause. By then, Africa can get its fair share. Ethiopia can get its fair share of global economy, politics. And the image that we have lost should also be fixed, because at the end of the day, remember, this is a country that deserves respect, honor in front of the global community.
As information can build the nation had we utilized positively, it has also the power of destroying a country if it is applied for a negative activity. And therefore, it is mandatory to follow and filter information being disseminated for the destruction purposes.